Okay, well then let's go into our program then. And I was thinking lately, and again on the way over here, that I had wondered if tonight's program might, I think it's always relevant, but I thought, well, it might be slightly less relevant than when I booked it, because we were looking at this fiscal cliff, so-called. And as it turns out, if the fiscal cliff is still there. However, even if it is quote, resolved, unquote, before the end of the year, we may or may not, probably not have a very favorable solution. So, yes, I'm afraid to say that tonight's program is still as relevant, if not more so than ever. And it does relate to, in the overarching sense, protecting and preserving your assets. And it's my firm belief that if it hasn't happened already, or happened in small ways at least, that when they run out of income to tax, they're going to have to just start taxing wealth, whether it's constitutional or not. And it's coming. So you want to try to hold on to your assets and hold on to your wealth. And our speakers tonight are very well versed in this subject and will give us a lot of interesting tips on how to do that. They've addressed us a couple of occasions before, and each time they've brought new information, because the environment is constantly changing and evolving, or devolving, however you want to put it. So it's good to have people who are, are on that beat and keeping an eye on what's going on, on literally a day-to-day basis, I'm sure, and preparing strategies for you. Some of the things they're going to talk about are basically defining trust, trust operations, trustee responsibilities, how to structure trust, establishing a business with a trust. So I think literally something for the whole family. And they're going to have some horror stories, I think. One that was cited in our reminder and announcement, basically what the so-called death tax is going to do to family businesses and family farms if something isn't done. And again, as I say, there may be a solution, but whether it'll be, an optimal solution, that remains to be seen. So we may have to develop some other strategies around, around this eventuality. So anyway, I'm glad that Frank and Gwen are here tonight, Frank Ozak and Gwen Wyckoff. So let me have them come up, and I will hand the dais over to them. And please help me welcome them.
I first want to thank Mike and recognize Howard and George McCaleb, who is also a co-author of The Art of Passing the Buck, and Bernard Brandt, who helped us put our paperwork together for the DOJ. And if anybody has any interest in legal work, both George and Bernard and Howard all have paralegals, and they can help people put that stuff together. I want to thank Mike for having us here, and I want to thank the Karl Hess Club. And one thing I did want to mention about this is that in our paperwork from the DOJ, the Karl Hess Club was mentioned. So therefore, you have stepped up, and you have now become recognized by the New World Order.
On the grid.
Eustace Mullen wrote about it in his book called The World Order, to where if you have any small club, no matter how small, you will probably have somebody there who is a representative of the order. They try to convince you to do something, they'll be very helpful. So, Karl Hess Club has been recognized. And before we get before we get started, if people are watching this on YouTube, there'll be a link here for any handouts that are given below, and there's also a link on our website for it. And one thing I want to say is if anybody's here that is a member of an alphabet agency or responds to an alphabet agency, please stand up and identify yourself.
What kind of agency?
Pardon?
Alphabet agency.
Alphabet agency.
I'm alone for the FIB.
Okay, well, I don't see anybody standing up. I see a bunch of people looking around and some people looking straight ahead. So the people looking around, I guess, are trying to find out who belongs to an alphabet agency, and those who are looking straight ahead are suspect.
What is it?
So I'm going to turn this over to Gwen, and she's going to carry the heavy load on this, and I hope you enjoy it. And
Okay. Give the website address. Give the website address.
oh, you can see us at, and this video will be posted at passingbucks.com. There's Gwen Wyckoff.
And here I am. Greetings and salutations. It's fun to be here. I hope to take you on a wild journey tonight and make everything pretty exciting. First of all, I'm going to start by telling a story about our great Mike Everett. Something he's totally forgotten. See, he was only 7 years old when this happened.
Oh, yeah.
He was in 7th grade. Maybe some of you have heard about him. The teacher came into class one day with a small envelope, and inside the envelope was a cut-up picture of the world. And these second graders are supposed to put together the world. Mike, at that time, little Mikey, was very fidgety. He didn't like sitting in class, and all these pieces of paper of this silly world were not interesting to him. So he pulled around with them, and he turned over a couple of them, and he found out on the back there was a picture of a home. And he liked that. That was a neat puzzle. So he turned everything over because he was a rebel, and he scotch taped it all together, and he was done in 10 minutes. And there he was with the world finished, because when he put together the home, the world took care of itself. So that's what this lecture is about. And of course we have to applaud Mike for his brilliance.
Thank you.
And the biggest conspiracy is the one against the family. You can put all the conspiracies together. You can list them, which I'm going to do tonight, a lot of them. And really the bottom line is they're after you and your family. Humans cannot operate alone. They can only operate in groups. They need to share resources. They need to talk to each other. They're made of heart and soul. There's lots of entities on this planet all dressed up in human bodies that don't have heart and soul. And it's unbelievable sometimes when we finally become aware of that we have to discriminate who we're dealing with. So my lecture is for heart and soul tonight. And I'm going to tell you a few more stories and then take you on a journey. This empty jar here, I mean it looks empty, looks about 6 inches with a white lid. This little jar here is not empty. There's something in here, and you're going to be able to see it later. Okay, I spent many years in transcendental meditation, listening to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and every once in a while he would say something that would just knock me over. And one day he said,
Now, speak up.
oh, okay.
Does he leave a mic for her?
Can you guys move up?
Now move up a little bit.
Move up.
You could stand where you were sitting, right there.
We're already set up for the video.
the videos are set up, so can you guys move forward?
There are places to move forward to.
All right.
There's 2 chairs right here, there's that booth right there, there's that booth right there. Plenty of places to move up to.
There's the reason I've been sick lately, and I can't. If I sit and shout, I'll never make it through the lecture. So sit, move, huh? Can you hear me, Howard?
I can hear you fine. I think the gentleman's turned off the mic.
Okay. All right, so I was saying that I spent many years in transcendental meditation, and I listened to the wise words of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And he said something one time that it just took me forever to think about it. And he said, you can only love yourself. There's absolutely nobody that you can love but yourself. It's impossible to love another person. And the only thing you love about another person is your own reflection. And I've gone through life for many years looking at that and recognizing that is so. And sometimes what you love in the other person is the other person's pain because it reflects your own. But with this in mind, when we're talking about families, you have to understand that you have to have, in your group situation with your family, you have to have a situation where you get satisfaction, where you're getting your needs met. And in the system I'm going to show you and explain to you, it's all based on cross-vested interest and getting benefits. Let me just say a little bit about benefits. I've said it on the YouTube video a lot, and I've said it on the audio lecture that's on our website. But whoever gives you the benefits is where your loyalty belongs. And unfortunately, it's the federal government that's giving out the benefits, and that's where all the loyalty is going. And in this trust system, the common law trust system, we need to rewire our families so that the group power through the trust system is where you get your benefits and where you want to put your attention, which is on each other and on your family. The families today are fractured. People are all over the place. There's dysfunctional relationships with parents and siblings and all kinds of stories about, everybody's got some issue going on with their family. However, the government has spent a lot of time programming the world to make sure that that is so. So at some place we have to stop, and we have to decide how we're going to do it. And there's absolutely no organizational system, no leadership system that is available that is tight enough to hold the family together under the circumstances, except the common law trust system. And this is why it's been under siege. This is why the DOJ comes after people with trusts. This is where the battle line is. So no matter what we deal with and how we look at it, the people that should support us, the people that we need to support us, are our family. Now, we may have to redefine family. We may have to say, well, my parents I can't deal with them, and you may have to get another group that's your family, but somehow you're going to have to reformat your organization so that you can survive in whatever's coming. And I'm not a doomsday person. I don't say bad things are coming. I just say that if we can organize ourselves on a family basis and become strong, we can provide the leadership necessary. All right, yes?
You will see on our newsletter, it says, inspired by family synergy, which is
All right, okay. Because we're in the trust business, I want to mention that all living trusts become irrevocable. And so there's a lot of principles about trusts in an irrevocable format that need to be learned before you do your simple little living trust that you can download off the internet. I'm not against doing that. I'm only against doing it without knowledge. In volume 1, we dedicate the whole book to teaching people about inheritance, how to pass on inheritance, what to do in every situation you can possibly imagine, whether the trust is irrevocable or not. But just remember, whatever you do, it will become irrevocable when the grantor dies. The subject of inheritance is probably the one of the least understood in the whole world, and that's been deliberate. Deliberate. It's not a mistake.
Why is that?
Because they don't want you to build your wealth from generation to generation. The powers that be, they have built their wealth since Rome. They have always been in trust. They've always put everything in trust. They have taught every generation how to perpetuate the wealth. And the people of Earth, the people that are not in those big families, those big ruling families, know nothing about it until we wrote these books. And now the whole system of how it's done is available.
Is that what's in those books?
Art was one of those.
Okay, I'm going to demonstrate a system to create family cohesion. A strong family has a multitude of options. A strong family has multiple connections and becomes a formidable force in society by creating jobs. What would you rather do? Have to work from morning to night for somebody else, or create jobs for somebody else? This is what family cohesion can do. Now I'm going to take you into the future, because very few of you have ever experienced being in a trust family, in a trust situation. So we are going to go on a fantasy journey, and we're going to go into the future and see what that looks like. And I brought my friend here in this jar, and you can't see her yet because you haven't got your virtual reality glasses. And this jar really isn't 6 inches tall. This jar is really 2 feet tall. And inside this jar is the name of a being called Perpetual. And her last name is Wealth, right? And this is a fairy. And I'm going to let her out of here. And she has purple iridescent wings. She has a teal dress. She has long tawny hair down to her waist. I bet you can see her now.
I can see her perfect.
And she's going to gold dust all of you and give you your virtual reality glasses. And on the side of your virtual reality glasses is a dial. And it goes from 0 to 5. And you're going to turn it up to 5. And I'm taking all of you, and we're zooming into the future. And you're going to go 3 generations into the future. And in that future, you're going to be sitting in a beautiful room. You can design your own room. It can have an oval table, it can have a square table, it can have a mahogany table, but there's 15 people sitting at that table. And you're zoomed into the future and you're sitting at the table. And what's happening in this table is it's a kind of like a board of trustees meeting. It's not a real serious one because it's not going to have a big long agenda. But you are 30 years old, you're sitting at the table, you've been invited into this meeting, and the trustees are explaining how all the money is accumulated in the trust, how the money comes in from the farm that was acquired through marriage by one of the beneficiaries. Your aunt brought the farm into the trust system. There's an electrical engineering company where the trust is a partnership, and it takes care of electrical engineering all over the world. And all this money is coming into the trust. There's an apartment building with 100 apartments. It's bringing in buco money, right? And you're sitting there at the table and you're looking at the pages of financial data. And you are there because you are going to be trained how to help manage all of this stuff. And when you were 18, see, you're 3 generations into the future. And when you were 18, you met with the trustees and they said, you're going to get $1,000 a month. And you're going to get it and you have 5 years to play with it. And what we want from you is we want you to have experience with money and we want you to have experience in life. You can either get an education or you get a technical education or you can just go out and have one job after another. And in 5 years, we want you to come back and tell us your experience. And then from that point forward, the trustees would design the rest of your training. So here you are in this Board of Trustees meeting, and they're telling you about the finances, and they're telling you they're going to give you this management training situation so you can help manage the family finances. Now this is a 3 generation in the future. So while you're sitting there and you're thinking, wow, how did this all happen to me? The perpetual wealth fairy decides to take you all back in time to show you how it was set up. And so that's what we're going to do today. We have a handout. We're going to show you how to structure a trust. A little bit about structuring a trust, but we're not going to do that quite yet. You've got to get you back into this room, so you're going to fly back into the room with the fairy. You're going to look down on the crowd, and you're not sitting here. You're sitting here as your grandparents who set up the trust for the 3 generations in the future. And I needed to explain to you what the goal is and what the future looks like so you could possibly understand what we're going to do today. And the idea is to step you through a little tiny piece of how to set up a trust. This information comes from volume 2, page 45, chapter 4. And the reason I want to tell you it's chapter 4 is because there's 3 chapters that go before what I'm going to tell you. So I'm going to only tell you a little piece because it's way too complicated to go any further.
How much are those books?
What?
How much are those books?
Well, the little one is $40. And the big one, which isn't for everybody, believe me not, it's $500. And we keep it at $500 because we want to keep the looky-loos out. If you're not serious about setting up a trust, we don't want you to get involved because it's very dangerous. I have never said it was easy to do what we're telling you to do. But if you are serious about setting up an organization to make your family work so you can sit in the Board of Trustees meeting in the future and wonder how all this happened, then you should get volume 2, okay? All right. So, previously, because I'm going to be jumping into a piece of trust structuring that's actually quite sophisticated, I want to just say that we're on YouTube. We have an hour and 15-minute video where we were interviewed about our court case. The DOJ came after us, and we proved to them by law, we proved to them by example, we proved to them by every possible means you could that the trust system we set up is absolutely legitimate. And I think the moment in time when the attorney for the DOJ got it is when I said, why are you asking me all these questions? A common law trust is no different than a statutory trust. There's no difference in law. It's the same laws. Why are you doing this? And I realized at that point that they actually thought a common law trust was a different animal. It's only a different animal in the sense that it is more sophisticated and it's harder to manage, but it has so much more potential. But if you have a court case and you're going to fight about your trust in front of a judge, it's the same laws as a statutory trust. So I was like, okay. So at that point is, I think, where the whole thing began to turn around. And they began to realize, we weren't doing anything illegal, or these were not sham trusts. The biggest difference between a sham trust and a real trust is whether you have two real trustees. Trustees are essential because they're the ones who have their name on the checking account. They're the ones who own all the investments. They're the ones who administer to the beneficiaries. And they are separate entities. Your name is not on the checking account. And you have to trust these trustees, that's why it's called a trust, to take care of you. And there's the trick. It's quite tricky. You better know what you're doing. Okay, we also have an audio lecture where I take you through the details of that particular scenario, where what do trustees do and what do all the officers do and all of that. So you can get all that in other places. I need some water. Okay, like I mentioned, the family is the only target. No matter what kind of conspiracy you go to, at the bottom, the family is the target. I call it yo-yo banking. The banking system on this planet can be manipulated anyway at any time by anybody who's got the power. And these are these big banking families that can do this. Now, you may not understand the issue of poverty in reference to politics. Poverty is deliberately set up by the powers that be because this is where they get their armies. Drugs and gangs is a beautiful source for armies and assassins. And they're funded by the alphabet agencies. These are all against the family. They release felons from prison early to terrorize the population, to make sure you cannot feel safe. They do not want you to feel safe. And of course, we all know about pedophiles. All over the place, pedophiles. I brought one article that was on the internet. It's called "Rampant Child Porn Rings at Government Agencies." Your fiends, these non-heart and soul people, they get fed children for payment. A pedophile is an obsessed creature. If you want him to go murder somebody for you, he will. Promise him five little girls. It's ugly. It's very ugly. But again, it's the family being targeted. You're up against a huge, huge enemy. And they've been at it a really long time. So you're now, remember, you had come back from the future, and you're wondering how your trust got set up. And so you're in this lecture right now, and you're understanding that it's very dark. When your grandparents set up this trust system, it was a very, very dark time. And what happened from the time your grandparents set up the trust system is they gathered enough momentum and enough internal fortitude by long-range planning that they were able to do something to clean up some of the problems that we have now. And it would take a lot of people to do this. And I didn't say I was dealing with reality. I said it was a fantasy. But we at Charles Arthur, this is what we're about. We're about educating people how to set up their family so that they have the cross-vesting, they have the benefits, they hold together. The military domination of the world was about making sure that oil remains in the backing of the dollar. These are called petrodollars that we have. Your $1 bill in your pocket is backed by oil. So if you change the oil domination of the world, then you're going to change the financial situation in the world. And this is where the great big power houses are fighting. Of course, we all know about dumbing down the population through the education system, where you know, you learn algebra in the morning and you learn chemistry in the afternoon, and the two are not connected. That's what happened to me. I was brilliant in algebra, but could I ever apply it to chemistry? No, I can't. It's compartmentalized learning, and it's done deliberately. And the educational system is about making sure that people cannot rise too far. They want factory workers. The government is very, very into programming the population. So the people better get onto programming their own children. What is kind of upsetting today is the mother with the baby and the stroller, and she's got 2 earplugs in her ears, and she's texting while she's listening to some music. Is she paying any attention to the baby? I'm sure all of us have seen this. Consciousness is transmitted by eye contact. You have to do your goochie-goochie-goos, and you have to do your peekaboos with your baby. And you have to talk to your baby. Your baby is your future. In the common law trust, what?
Touching.
Huh?
Touching.
Oh, touching, holding, all of that. In the common law trust system, you begin to realize your children are your product. Your children are your asset. The focus goes away from trying to buy the speedboat into making sure the children rise up to take care of the future. Okay, where are we? Okay, you know about those situations. You probably had it in your own family if your parents were going to leave you anything at all, where your mother or your father would not tell you anything about the money that they were going to pass to you. They absolutely refused. They were so afraid that you wanted to take their money that they never told you anything. Then they die, and nobody's prepared for what happens. That's happened with my father. He had a substantial sum of money, and he wouldn't tell me anything. Then he died, and his brother took over the trust my father set up. And his brother took him months to figure out where all the money was. And there was no instructions. There was a trust, but there wasn't any instructions where any of the wealth was. When we set up an irrevocable trust, all that money gets transferred to the trustees, and you turn your family into a business, and the trustees print out some financial reports, and the beneficiaries get to see what's going on. It's full disclosure, and it's full participation in the family. And the family comes together, and this is where you start getting your beneficial distribution and your vested interest. This is where it starts, not this closed-lipped kind of thing that parents often do. When I give you your little assignment here, you're going to see 4 trusts, and you might wonder why there's 4 different trusts. There's a thing in the trust world called asset separation. That's if one asset gets seized, you don't lose all the others. In our video, we tell a funny story about that. It's called The Dog Bit. The dog was in trust. The dog bit somebody. The person sued, and he ended up with the dog in the trust. That's all he got. He didn't get the house or the car or anything.
I can give you a more classic example. The Kennedy Trust. All of the property is in the Kennedy Trust. The when the Kopechne family attempted to sue Edward Kennedy, they found that he did not own the house that was over his head. He did not even own the car that killed their daughter. If they could sue him all they wanted to, but there was nothing for them, nothing that they could take back. That's what a family trust can do.
And it saved his bacon.
Yes.
I don't want to, go over things that we already have in public domain, because I want to move on here in reference. Thank you for that, Bernie. I want to reiterate, since Bernie just contributed to this, I want to reiterate how brilliant he was with his paperwork in reference to saving us when the DOJ came after us. We can highly recommend him as a great researcher, and he understands strategy. Okay, yes?
Just to put that in perspective, the DOJ had gone into court 99 times before that for prior restraint on publications. They were 99 and 0. They came after us, and with Bernie, they walked out of the television. Paul felt it would be more like it.
The paperwork.
Brilliant work.
The paperwork they sent against us caused George and Bernie to go into great, hilarious laughter. It was so bizarre and off the wall. And Bernie was quite incensed with the injustice of the situation, and so he jumped in and helped us. And George was a great part of allowing that to happen.
Just because it was humorous and off the wall doesn't mean it wasn't deadly serious.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was scary. I mean, since it was my name and Frank's name, I didn't find it funny. I'm glad they did.
I also plan on writing a book about the whole affair and telling as well the skill sets and knowledge set of Bernie's employee. But the working title for it is how to defend yourself against government rulings, because that is precisely what happened.
Okay. Are you ready to structure your trusts, grandparents? Did you guys pass out the little thing, the flyer already? Okay.
Pencils, yes. We have pencils, if anybody wants pencils.
Yeah, we don't have a lot, but if you don't have, everybody good?
Sure that Dallas and Jay get copies of the thing. You guys get copies? No.
They don't have. My assistants have neglected you. Now, I realized when I decided to put this together that it was probably way out of sequence and way ahead of the game. But I figured if you sit down and you actually have to name your own trust, it might sink in a little deeper. So I want you to go to Exhibit A, the one that you don't have to fill out. And this is straight from the book. It's called the Allen J. Family Trust. And in Volume 2, we take you through the whole setup of this trust from beginning to end. We take you through all the details. And the reason the trustee names are a little odd is because then you'll remember them. And so the Allen J. Family Trust is the last names of the mother's maiden name of both the grandparents, of the husband and the wife. So the husband's mother's maiden name was Allen, and the wife's mother's maiden name was Jade. And the reason we use the maiden name is because it divorces the government agencies from connecting you in current time to the trust name. It causes a separation. Because you don't want to name your trust after your current surname. Because then you're targeted, right? The other reason that we use this is these two people, Al and Jay on here, have a history. And the little kids are going to say, well, who are these people? And then you get to tell your children history, okay? So it's a really big family deal. So when you're going to name your own trust, I want you to think about a name that is disconnected from your surname and that will give your family a history. The trustees on this particular trust are chosen because they are friends and they're trusted, and all of that choosing of these two trustees is written up in the books, in both books. We think choosing trustees is a very big deal. Okay, you don't choose trustees lightly, and you better know what you're doing, and they better know what they're doing. Then we listed the assets that are going to go in what's called the management trust. The management trust handles things to where it's not interactive with the world. It handles passive investments. It handles those big checks that come in every week, and the management trust disperses it to all the beneficiaries. And the beneficiaries are named on this particular Exhibit A because this page comes out of the trust, comes out of the book. We're not going to go into in this meeting how to choose your beneficiaries and TCUs. That is a huge subject. Takes the whole book to explain it. But it's on this page because I wanted you to see what beneficiaries look like and notice that they are different on different trusts. That's very important.
What does TCU stand for?
Trust Capital Unit. It's your PC action. When you get born, you have a TCU when you get born. You have probably 10, okay? So you're already rich, even though you're one day old. So you're always, you come into the world with a vested interest in the trust. And the trust, at the very least, should, in an ideal situation, handle your food, clothing, and shelter. In some way, it should guarantee that you'll never be on the street. When you can build up the assets that much. Okay, so the management trust is handling the mutual funds and some cash and some stock account and a promissory note, that kind of thing. And then the settlers, or the people who are setting up the trust, are not listed on here. They had a brother who had it's a machine, Jones Energy Partnership, IBM stocks, and the brother wanted to come into the trust system, but he didn't want to mix his stuff up with everybody else. So he's doing a business trust, and he also has a partnership. So he comes in as a business trust, and he names his beneficiaries. Then you have two asset holding trusts. Asset holding trusts do not interact at all with the public. They hold assets. These are, things that are just sitting there. And that would be residential property in the Dawson Trust, and SM Myers Trust has all the equipment. And this management trust is the one that manages all these assets. It manages and it distributes and all of this. The business trust has its own checking account, it does business, but the Allen J. Family Trust manages the business trust. You got all that? Clear? Are you looking at your diagram? Okay. Now, what you're going to do, because you're the grandparents here and you're setting up this great big trust, you're going to at least take a little tiny step and turn this over, and you're going to name your management trust, you're going to name your business trust, you're going to name your two asset holding trusts, and you're going to put in the business trust what kind of business it is, And in your asset holding trust, you're gonna put in there what kind of assets they are. Okay? Go. Right.
You may want to think, who you want for your trustees? They have to be close friends.
Oh wait, your trustee, one of your trustees is the person across from you or the person to your right. And write that
And you
person's
cannot
I
name.
name-
have trustees that I want to use. Can I put them in?
What?
I have trustees that I want to use.
Yeah, put them in.
You cannot name George or myself as a trustee because we're forbidden by law for being a trustee.
Actually, no, I'm available.
Oh, you're available again. Okay, I'm not.
You can be a trustee, George. Okay, get your name in. You guys all got your name?
Well, I'm here.
I can't. Fictionally, you can.
For this exercise. Has everybody got their name in? Name of the trust. Name? It's fun, isn't it? You see, just naming your trust takes a tremendous amount of energy.
Mother's maiden name would be a good one. Grandparents, their names. There's somebody who meant something important to you in your life.
A name that you want your children to know about. A trust that I inherited from a long time ago was set up in about 1920, and it was named after the guy who set it up. And I was always wondering, what did he do? And I was always asking people to tell me stories about him. And unfortunately, my family didn't have a lot of information about him. But in 1920, I understand the trust was worth $400,000. In 1920.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot of money.
But how much was it worth after 29?
Well, we had a member of our family, one of those heartless demon things, and he spent lots of his own money trying to break the trust. So it depleted the assets. So, all right, y'all got that? How about, you got your trustees in?
Yeah.
How about your asset for the business trust? You got that?
Assets?
The assets in your business trust, it's going to have a checking account, so it's a business. It's going to be dealing with the public. Linda's not playing.
I already have.
What?
I already have.
Oh, you filled it out already? And what do we have in our asset holding trust? Got names for them? And what kind of goodies? Well, Bernie, what kind of goodies do you have in your asset trust?
Well, I have a whole bunch of municipal bonds, of course.
Oh, well, they make money, so they got to go into the management trust.
Yes. Well, as regards to the assets that or the individual
The inert assets, the non-action asset,
non-action.
the thing that just sits there like
metals.
precious metal. Where would you put that? You cash them in, and you have a check.
do
You
a
have a
management
cash flow
trust
with
with
that. That's a management trust.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Let's see, hard work.
Hard work. Hard work's a business trust. What kind of asset do you have, Mr. McCallum?
Well, in one of them, I have the homes.
You have one home or more?
One.
One home. All right. What do you have in the other one?
I have artwork
No.
and antiques.
Huh?
Artwork and antiques.
Antiques. Oh, hardwood, did you say?
Artwork.
Oh, artwork. Okay, artwork and antiques. That's good. Okay. How about Athena? What?
Where? The asset?
We're looking for the asset that just, it doesn't produce cash or anything, it just sits there.
Well, I don't know, and I have a car.
Yeah, car's okay.
Car,
A car goes into that.
gold and silver.
Yeah, we like to put gold and silver in the management trust because you can cash it out.
Okay.
It's a lot of cash flow goes with it. Cash
I don't own
flow.
a home, so.
So you got a car and a home? That's
No,
good.
I don't have a home.
Oh, wait, this is virtual reality, you got your little virtual,
Just pick stuff up.
you can put stuff in there.
Put the Bentley in there.
Put the rolls in
I'm
there.
reluctant to own property because I never really own it.
Stick it, if you want to own
I mean,
it,
if I don't,
stick
if
it
I
on
don't
there.
give the money, if I don't give the government the money they want, they take it from me. So, I don't know.
But you're not gonna own it, it's gonna be under the name of the trustees, so they'll never know.
Then the trust has to pay the taxes. I mean, but then, because if the government doesn't get the money they want, they take stuff. That's what I've noticed.
If it's yours.
Well,
I'm having a problem here dealing with the machine business.
The machine,
The machine tools are in one trust and the business is in another. How do you go about transferring depreciation from the machinery to the business?
that's an accounting thing. We keep the tools are separate by ownership. But it's in a separate trust, so if you want to appreciate it or depreciate it or whatever you want to
The tools are
do, it's
leased
in
from one trust to the
another,
other.
So you've got money passing back and forth between the trusts.
well, you're renting out that equipment, all right? So the money passing back and forth is going into the business trust. The actual physical ownership is in the asset trust. And how you would work for the management trust, and you would have the problem of the appreciation, the depreciation issues, and the schedules and stuff. But if the actual ownership is in that box, okay? And the box is owned by the beneficiaries. So you can rent out the equipment in the asset holding trust. And the money goes into the business trust. Does that make sense? Good. She's an accountant. Breathe. All right. Who else is going to tell me what they got in their asset holding trust? Yes.
I have the books that I've written and the recordings that I've created of hypnotherapy and my whole 7-key turnkey system for hypnotherapists to build the practice.
As long as it's inert and not moving? Yeah, that's
Those
right.
would go to business
Manuscripts are good.
trust though, wouldn't they?
What?
Those would generate income?
Yeah,
Those would
but
go to
the,
business trust.
the physical manuscript is in an asset holding trust. It's generating money through the business.
The copyright's what we're talking about here, now we're going to business trust.
Copyright is in,
So artwork would be just sits there, right?
artwork just sits there. Now, if you make copies of the artwork and you sell them to your business trust. But the originals can be in a asset holding trust. So the trustees will go into the asset holding trust and sell the originals someday, and then the beneficiaries of that asset holding trust get the distribution. Did you follow that? Linda followed.
More bucks.
Well, of course, women would follow all of it.
Yeah? Did you have a question?
Oh, no, I was just thinking.
Okay. All right. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to know what you do with copyrights and patents. I didn't quite hear what.
They go in the business trust.
No, the actual physical manuscript and copyright and all that goes into the asset holding trust because it's dead. It's not moving. It's
But
not
the
a moving
royalties
thing.
would come back into the business.
Yeah, but the royalties and all that come back into the business.
So the
trust.
intellectual property actually stays in the business trust, so it collects the royalties.
No,
No.
no, because you have a contract between the holding trust and the business trust to collect the royalties.
Contract assigning the rights. Contract which assigns the rights of the copyright and stuff.
Yeah, see, the beneficiaries own what's in the asset holding trust. You have to understand who really gets the benefit. The benefit is the beneficiaries. All right. So if you have something in an asset holding trust and you sell it, then the beneficiaries get the money. But if you have it but the business trust has a contract to manage the asset in the asset holding trust. So through that contract, the business trust administers all that money. Let's say you have a Monet and it's in the asset holding trust, okay? If you sell a Monet, then the beneficiaries get it, all right? Now let's say you're gonna make, what do you call them, cliches, is that what it is? Copies of the
Giclées.
artwork? What is it?
Chiclets.
Whatever it is. Pardon me, you can all laugh at me. But if you make copies of those things, you sell them through the business trust. But the original is in the asset trust.
Let's say that you had 4 or 5 pieces of real estate investment properties, apartment buildings or something like that. Those would go into the asset trust,
Yeah, the actual building is in the asset trust.
and then the businesses that actually,
Gathers the money is the business trust.
okay, so if there's an LLC that's set up that actually owned them, would you then take it out of the LLC and put it into the asset trust and keep the LLC as the business, as part of the business trust?
Now you're mixing apples and oranges. Because
See,
the
the government has,
LLC is a different
government has
entity.
control over an LLC, they don't have any control over a trust.
So you take everything out of the LLC and just drop it into the trust and
Right.
dissolve the LLC.
They can ask you for your paperwork anytime they want to on an LLC. They cannot on a trust, which you well know.
Except under certain circumstances.
In
which
front of a
Bernie
judge.
taught us. No, when you're in discovery, the DOJ, the attorney for the DOJ, can just write something and demand to see something. It's not under the Fourth Amendment for some reason. Bernie could probably do a whole speech on it. But if
That's going to be a part of at least one chapter of the book.
at least, all right. But anyhow, they didn't get anything anyway, so there was nothing to get. Okay. Any other questions? You guys got your trust name? You got your assets stuck in your little asset trust? You got your business trust straightened out? And the management trust is where Linda would work, and she handles all the accounting for the business trust and the asset holding trust. And Bernie works for the management trust as a legal researcher. And then you have an executive secretary and you have a general manager, and they work for the management holding trust. Not the management trust. And they administer all the other trusts. Ownership is determined by the beneficiaries on the trust, and that's how it's kept separate. Any questions? Y'all got your foot into the door for your setting up the 3-generation trust you saw in the future? And let's hope. Any last questions? Because that's it, I think. Let me see, do I have anything else here? The paperwork is done by the executive secretary, it's signed by board of trustees. And how you get money into the trust is called loading the power, and it's explained in volume 2. So you have to set up the structure, you have to get, there's a separate trust book for every trust. There's a separate trust capital unit register for every trust. They're all kept separate. And how you get money into each of the trusts and how you transfer everything into each of the trusts, all those details, how you do it is in volume 2.
Volume 1 covers the basics on trust, and even though you are getting another, you're involved with another trust, the grantor of the trust still retains powers that are approved by the Internal Revenue Service, to where you can still control the corpus and the income. The grantor still has the right to determine what is corpus and what is income. And it's legal, and it is in the IRS code. We don't talk about taxes, but that's what's in there. That's verbatim right from their code. So can't tell you what to do about that, but it's the grantor still retains powers that he can exercise while he's still alive.
And if you are setting up a trust, the trustees need to be very sure what powers they allow the grantor to have. I mean, he's setting up the trust, he can retain powers he wants to, but the trustees need to be clear about what that means and whether they agree with it or not. And we have the footnotes to all that in volume 1. You don't have to get volume 2 to find that out. Okay? That's it.